The Nun 2 is of course the sequel to The Nun and also the 9th installment of the Conjuring franchise. So, how do I feel about it? Well, before that, I will reflect a lot more on the Conjuring franchise as a really one connected story. And yes, the first and the second Conjuring, they are really the gold standard of the modern horror movies. And when I saw this film, this Nun sequel, I didn't have any expectations, The first one was not that great, even though it had some good qualities, some good elements in there, but the first one was not great. So, my expectation for this film was really minimal. And how do I feel about it? Well, this movie mostly improves on the first film and get rid of some elements that did not work in the first film. Let's just start with the pros of this film because I have a few. Pros number 1, Thaisa Farmiga gives an outstanding performance in this film. She basically carries this film on her shoulder, and you really can tell. She gives a really solid performance here, even better than the first film, because in this film she has some motivations and you can really relate to her character, and I really like her in this film. The second thing, this film is basically like a detective story, There is some investigative parts involving, of course, Sister Irene and the investigative partner investigating the murder of priests and nuns that involves Falak, the demon nun. And I pretty much enjoyed the investigative twist in this film. I really think it worked well in the narrative purpose, and it really helped you change the formula a little bit. And I really like the investigative parts sprinkled around this film, even though the main thing that they are still selling here is, of course, the horror aspect. And with that, I will move on to the horror aspect. This second film takes a different approach. She's not here as much as she was in the first film, and I really appreciate that. That gives you time to immerse yourself into the story without being chased by the Falak. And also, this film gives spotlights through 3 demons, There's, of course, Falak, and the second demon is the altar boy demon, and also the goat demon. And these 3 demons purposes a different twist with the plot itself. And by the end of the film, you really understand how they relate. Their plots relate to the main story, and which is defeating the Falak. These 2 other demons, they have a purpose to really combine the narrative to be more compelling. And I think it works really, really well in this film. And the third positive that I can give is, of course, the amount they use with the jump scares. Of course, there are jump scares here, and some of them are obviously jump scares. There are some setups, obvious setups, and then some jump scare will pop into your face. You get that kind of jump scares. But Michael Travis, the director of this film, also uses jump scares smartly. He uses it to build up tension. And most of the time, the jump scares here were unexpected. And I really think that is the most effective approach for a jump scare in a horror film. And I really think in this film, the jump scares were mostly expertly used. They're not just right in your face all the time, but you really feel the tension during this film, and you really starting to search the presence of Falak. even though it was a dark screen, it gives you time to guess where the Valak is. And it is the most fun part of the film. In the dark frame, you really can guess where she is. Is she present on screen or not? And that is a really fun twist on the approach of the film that Michael Chaves used involving the jump scares. And I think it was really effective. Now, the third positive that I can give is with Storm Reed's character. She is a nun. As I said before, this film also involves on the investigative aspect. And her character helps a lot with that purpose. She clearly has a purpose. And because she is a nun, the script treats her as a human. So there's nothing superhero-y about her character. And her partnership with Sister Eileen comes out as a really natural approach as the investigative parts itself. So her character was expertly handled by the script, and the script knows how to use her properly instead of use her like this superhero type character. So yes, her character works very well. But there's also one major problem that I have with the film, and that is not scary at all. This film also has some jump scares, and like I said before, the jump scares here were mostly effectively used. But it is not as scary as the first appearance of the nun in The Conjuring 2. The film builds upon tension, and this film also does that, but in a way that is very different, and I think that really minimizes the haunting aspect of the character of the Valak itself. Because if you see how they're using Valak in this film and how they were using Valak in Conjuring 2, it is very different approach. And I think this character should have an approach very similar to the second film, because that second film, her first scene was very effective. It haunts me until today. But in this film, she doesn't have a long-lasting impression to the audience. She mostly hides in the shadows. But overall, guys, I think this is significantly better than the first film, and this is one of the better Conjuring films. So if you want to see a nun film, go pick this one rather than picking the first one. This film has a lot more good quality to it. The first one was super forgettable. So with that in mind, I will give The Nun 2 an 8 out of 10. This is a solid entry to the Conjuring franchise. And tell me, guys, where do you think this franchise could go next after The Nun? What they would do in this franchise? I heard there was a rumor for Conjuring 4 coming, and I honestly don't know how this would tie into the plot of that film. So leave me the answers down below and see you on the next video.